I never thought one single word could echo in my head for years. But when it's spoken by your own father, when his voice cuts through a crowded train station and strangers actually turn to stare, it carves itself into you, useless, he hissed, throwing the heavy duffel bag onto the floor at my feet. At least make yourself useful for once. The bag hit with a dull thud, and the sound felt louder than the announcements blaring overhead. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes darting away, like she couldn't even bear to look at me. She wasn't embarrassed by him. She was embarrassed by me. Always me. I bent down quickly, hiding the heat on my face as I grabbed the strap of the bag. It was heavier than it looked, but I didn't complain. I never complained. I just carried. That's what I was born for in their eyes, to carry things. Carry the weight. Carry their disappointment. Carry their bitterness. But what they didn't know, what they could never know, was that in the pocket of my jacket, pressed tight against the lining, I held something they hadn't given me, a ticket. Not just a ticket, but a secret they would have burned if they knew. The crowd around us surged. People rushing toward their platforms, the squeal of wheels against tracks ringing in the air. The station smelled like rust, hot metal, and too many bodies pressed close. Families laughed, children tugged on their parents' hands. Lovers kissed goodbye like it was a movie. Everyone was rushing toward something. Everyone except me. To the world. I was just another person standing behind their parents with the bags. A nobody, but I knew the truth. This wasn't just another morning. This wasn't just another trip. This was the day my life cracked open. I should probably go back a little, because nothing ever happens in isolation. My parents didn't just wake up one morning and decide I was useless. They had been telling me that in 1,000 ways for as long as I could remember, when I was a kid. My mother would sigh when I tried to help in the kitchen. Don't touch that, you'll ruin it. When I brought home a drawing from school, my father would frown. What is this even supposed to be? A waste of paper. When I got sick and couldn't stop coughing through the night, my mother stood in the doorway and muttered, "You're a burden." It wasn't always words. Sometimes it was just silence. The kind of silence that grows between you like a wall. The kind of silence that says louder than anything else, "You don't matter." I grew up inside that silence. By the time I was a teenager, I had already learned to make myself small. I learned to carry bags, clean up messes, stay out of the way. I learned that if I tried to shine, they would dim me. If I tried to run, they would drag me back. But here's the thing about learning to disappear: you also learn to listen. You hear things you're not supposed to hear. You notice details nobody else does. That's how I found the ticket. It was a week before the station. I had been cleaning my father's office, like always. He hated dust, hated fingerprints, hated me being in there at all, but he liked his papers organized. And apparently even I was better than letting things sit in piles. That's when I saw it. A small envelope tucked beneath a stack of folders. My curiosity got the better of me, even though I knew if he caught me snooping, I'd pay for it. My hands shook as I opened it. And there it was. A train ticket. Not for the three of us. For one. But not one of them for me. My name. My seat. My departure. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. Or maybe a cruel joke. But the more I stared, the more it burned into me. It wasn't just a ticket. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't completely invisible. Proof that, at least somewhere, I existed enough to be printed on paper. But why? Why would my father have a ticket with my name on it, hidden away like that? I shoved it into my pocket before I had time to think. And from that moment on, it became my secret. My pulse every time he walked past. My lifeline. I didn't know where it would take me. I didn't know what it meant. But I knew one thing for sure, it was mine. So here I was, a week later, dragging their bags through the crowded station while they snapped at me. While strangers pretended not to stare. "Don't slow us down," my mother said, her voice sharp as her heels clicking against the tile. Honestly, why do we even bring you along? That one cut. Because the truth was, they weren't bringing me along. Not really. They thought I was only here to carry, to wave them off, to go back home alone. But they were wrong. The ticket in my pocket said otherwise. We reached the platform, the train looming above us with its sleek silver body. People were already boarding, showing tickets to the attendant at the gate. My father handed over his, then my mother's. They didn't even glance back at me. They just walked ahead, certain that I would follow, certain that I would carry their things, certain that I would never dare to step out of line. I hesitated. For the first time in my life. I didn't just move because they told me to. I reached into my pocket. My fingers brushed the edge of the ticket. My heart thundered. It was time. You'd think freedom would feel like wings. But when the attendant scanned my ticket and nodded me through, it felt like chains rattling loose. I almost couldn't believe it. I half expected alarms to go off, for my father to turn round and drag me out by the arm, but nothing happened. The crowd carried me forward. I stepped onto the train, and just like that, I wasn't behind them anymore. I wasn't carrying their bags. I wasn't invisible. I was something else. But I didn't know yet that the something else was darker than anything I could have imagined. When I found my seat, I sat down slowly, like the chair might reject me. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting at any second to see my father storming down the aisle. His hand raised, his face red with fury. But no one came. The train hissed. The doors closed, and with a slow lurch, it began to move. The station started to slide away, the faces on the platform shrinking. The life I had always known blurring into the distance. For the first time in years, maybe for the first time ever, I breathed. Really breathed. I pressed my hand against the pocket where the ticket had been scanned, almost as if I needed to check that it was still real, that I hadn't imagined it. I was on the train, and they weren't. But freedom didn't feel the way I thought it would. Instead of joy, I felt this heavy coil in my stomach, twisting tighter with every mile. Because deep down, I knew something wasn't right. The carriage was quiet, filled with strangers who barely looked at me. Some read newspapers, some tapped away on laptops. Others just stared out the window with glazed eyes. Nobody seemed to notice me slip into the seat. Nobody asked why a kid like me was traveling alone. But one woman did look at me. She was sitting a few rows ahead, her dark hair tied back, her coat neatly buttoned. When our eyes met, she didn't smile the way normal people do. She just studied me, like she knew something, like she was waiting. I turned away quickly, staring out the window at the rushing trees and tracks. It didn't matter. I told myself it didn't matter. She was just another passenger, but that feeling, that coil in my stomach, it pulled tighter. As the train sped forward, I tried to piece it together. Why had my father had this ticket with my name on it? Why hadn't he given it to me? Why was it hidden, tucked under his papers like a secret he hoped nobody would find? I thought about confronting him back then when I found it, but I didn't. I never confronted. I obeyed. That's who I was. Or at least, that's who I had been. Now, as the train cut further away from the station, I realized I had no plan, no destination in mind. The ticket had been my escape. Yes, but escape to what? I reached into my pocket again and pulled it out. The paper trembled in my hands. The letters printed on it stared back at me. My name, the train's number, the destination. Only then did I really notice it. The name of the town. I had never heard of it. That was strange enough on its own. But what unsettled me more was how far away it was. I checked the small map printed on the back, tracing the route with my finger. This wasn't just the next city over. This wasn't some casual trip. This train was carrying me hours away, and to a place I didn't recognize. I should have felt scared, and I did. But there was something else underneath the fear, something darker. A thought I couldn't shake. Maybe my father hadn't intended for me to find this ticket. Maybe he had intended for me to use it, and maybe that was worse. The woman with the dark hair stood up as the attendant passed, handing over her ticket. For a moment, I thought she'd glance back at me again. But she didn't. She just walked slowly down the aisle, her heels clicking against the floor, and disappeared into the next carriage. I exhaled, only then realizing I had been holding my breath. The train rattled, the scenery blurred by. Hours passed, though I couldn't tell how many. My body was in that seat, but my mind was everywhere back in the house I hated. Back in every moment I had ever been told I was worthless, and the more I thought, the more I wondered if maybe they were right. If maybe this whole thing, the ticket, the train, my escape was just another way to prove I was nothing. I didn't notice the man until he sat down across from me. He looked ordinary enough. Gray jacket, tired eyes, a face you wouldn't remember in a crowd. But the way he stared at me made my skin crawl. Traveling alone? He asked, his voice low. I froze, words stuck in my throat. I wanted to lie, to say my parents were a few seats down. But something about the way he looked at me told me he already knew the truth. Quiet one. Aren't you? He said, almost smiling. That's good. Quiet people survive longer. My blood ran cold. Before I could answer, he leaned back, folding his arms as if he had said nothing unusual at all. His eyes drifted to the window, leaving me to sit there with my pulse racing. I didn't sleep, not even when the carriage grew dim and passengers dozed against the windows. My body was tense, my eyes darting to every movement. The man eventually got up and left, disappearing like the woman had before. But the damage was done. His words clung to me, echoing in my mind. Quiet people survive longer. What did he mean? What exactly had I gotten myself into? When the announcement came for the final stop, my stomach dropped. The train began to slow, and outside, the scenery shifted from forests and rivers to something else entirely. The town, or whatever it was, looked abandoned. Crumbling buildings lined the tracks. Windows boarded up, paint peeling. The platform we pulled into was cracked and empty, weeds pushing through the cement. This wasn't the grand escape I had imagined. This wasn't freedom. This was something else. I clutched the ticket in my hand as I stepped off the train. The air smelled different here, stale, heavy, like it had been sitting still for years. There were no crowds, no families rushing to hug each other. Just silence, and in that silence, a single figure waited at the edge of the platform, tall, still. Watching me, my heart skipped. I didn't know who it was, but deep down, in that place where instinct lives, I knew one thing for certain. This was why my father had the ticket. This was why he hadn't told me, because this place, this rival, it wasn't meant to set me free. It was meant to end me. The figure on the platform didn't move at first, just stood there waiting. The longer I looked, the clearer it became he was waiting for me. I froze halfway down the steps of the train, my pulse hammering in my ears. Other passengers brushed past me, a handful of them stepping into the broken station. But none of them seemed to notice him. None of them looked twice. Only me. The man's face was hidden in shadow. But when he finally stepped forward, I felt the weight of his eyes. Heavy, sharp, like he could see through my skin. You made it, he said, his voice calm, almost relieved. I wasn't sure if you would. I clutched the ticket tighter in my hand, the paper crumpling under my fingers. Who are you? He tilted his head, ignoring the question. You kept the ticket. Good. That means you're ready. My throat dried. Ready for what? Instead of answering, he gestured for me to follow. Every bone in my body told me to run. But where would I go? Back onto the train? It was already pulling away, the screech of metal echoing into the night. Back home. My parents wouldn't even look for me. So I followed. The station gave way to an empty street, the cracked pavement stretching into the darkness. The buildings on either side were silent, their windows like dead eyes. It felt like a place frozen in time, abandoned by everyone except the shadows. The man walked with steady steps, and I trailed behind like a child who had lost their way. After what felt like forever, he stopped in front of a large building. The paint was peeling, the sign above the door so faded I couldn't read it. This is where it begins. He said. Inside, the air was colder. Dust clung to the walls, the floor creaked beneath our weight. The faint smell of mildew hung in the air. He led me down a hallway lined with doors, each one shut tight. I wanted to ask where we were, but fear kept me silent. At the end of the hall. He opened one of the doors. Going, he said. I hesitated. Go on, he repeated. Softer this time. I stepped inside. The room was small, lit by a single flickering bulb. In the center stood a table. On the table, more tickets. Dozens of them. Stacks, all with names printed neatly on their surfaces. And on top of the stack, I saw mine. The exact same ticket I had carried here. My knees nearly buckled. I pulled mine from my pocket, holding it up with trembling hands. They were identical. What is this? I whispered. The man finally smiled, though it wasn't kind. It's what you were always meant for, he explained, or maybe confessed. I don't know which word fits better. The tickets weren't for freedom. They were never for escape. They were invitations, summons, each one designed for someone who had been. Chosen. Not chosen because they were strong, not chosen because they were loved. Chosen because they were expendable, because nobody would miss them. My heart sank as the truth unfolded. My father hadn't forgotten me, hadn't accidentally left that ticket where I could find it. He had put it there. On purpose. Because he knew I would take it, because he wanted me gone. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. No, that's not true. He wouldn't, but even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Of course he would. He had spent my whole life reminding me I was worthless. What better proof than this? The man reached out, plucking the crumpled ticket from my hands. He placed it gently back on the stack as if restoring order. Your parents brought you into this world, he said. But it was never theirs to keep you. You belong here now. No, I whispered. Yes, he said, his eyes locking onto mine. That's why you survived long enough to get here. That's why you carried the weight all those years. You were being prepared. Prepared for what? I wanted to scream. Prepared to do what? But I didn't have to ask. Because when he opened the door at the back of the room, I saw it. Rows of people. Silent, waiting, their faces pale, their eyes empty. Each of them clutching their own ticket. Each of them chosen, and as I stepped closer, a chill spread through me. They weren't just waiting. They were trapped, bound to this place. To this secret system built on the forgotten, the unloved. The ones branded as useless. And now I was one of them. I wanted to run. I wanted to tear down the hallway, burst through the doors, and never look back. But my legs wouldn't move. My body felt heavy, like the ticket itself had chained me here. The man placed a hand on my shoulder, his grip firm. Don't fight it. You've been fighting your whole life. This is where the fighting ends. Tears blurred my vision. For years I had dreamed of escape, of freedom, of a world where I mattered. I thought the ticket was my key, but freedom was never written in those letters, only my fate. The others turned their heads slowly, their hollow eyes fixing on me. And in that silence, I understood. I wasn't the first. I wouldn't be the last. The secret ticket wasn't my salvation. It was my inheritance. My parents hadn't sent me away by accident. They had delivered me. Because in their eyes, I had always been right. I was useless. And in this place, the useless had a purpose I didn't choose, a purpose I couldn't escape. The bulb flickered once, twice, then went out. And in the darkness, I heard the sound of hundreds of voices whispering the same word. My father had thrown at me in the station. Useless. Only now I understood the truth. It wasn't an insult. It was a sentence.